Hey everybody, welcome back. This is author MD New, and I am here with more writing tips and tricks for authors. So today I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about editing. I know I went over this briefly a couple videos back, and today I wanted to dive into why editing your book is so important. I know in the last video we talked about overly used words and filler words and all that. But today I wanted to touch on editing overall. And really, why this is important is, quite honestly, nobody wants to find mistakes in a book. I know as a reader, I don't want to find mistakes in the book. As an author, I hate finding mistakes in my own books as well as other books because the story might be amazing, and no matter how good the story is and how strong you're telling this great story and you've created this beautiful world with all these wonderful words and characters and beings and everything that's in there, the minute you find editing mistakes, it takes you out of the story, and there's nothing worse than that. It is so important to do everything you can to make sure that you've got the best piece of edited work you can. Now, don't get me wrong, mistakes get through. It doesn't matter how many editors you have, how many people review the book, how many times it's been edited by professional editors, there is still going to be editing mistakes. You find them in Stephen King's works, you find them in Tolkien, you find them in George R. R. Martin's works. It doesn't matter how great the author is, there are still going to be editing mistakes. But the trick is to minimize them. The more we can do in the editing, the better the book will be overall, and the less we're going to jar the readers out of our stories. So, the first thing that you can do when you're writing your books, and again, this is so important, is pay for editing. If you are an indie author, please pay to have your book professionally edited. I know it's expensive. I know that it costs a lot of money. And I know you may believe that you are going to catch every single solid mistake that there is in your book, but you're not going to. So having a professional editor review your book is just going to pay off in spades because your book is going to look that much more polished and professional. So even if you're just an indie author and you're starting out on your very first book, find an editor. Find somebody who will do copy edits, who will do spelling, grammar, all those types of typographical edits. Make sure that you will find them and that you're willing to pay for them. Most editors charge anywhere between a half a cent per word to 1 to 2 cents per word. So, and it can go up from there also, so you can pay for more. In theory, the more you pay, the more services they should be willing to provide. So you should get a couple of rounds of editing. You know, you might get a preliminary edit when they go through and catch all the big stuff, ask you questions about, you know, story logic or plot holes or those types of things. Then they'll go through and do another edit, which is more focused on, you know, your spelling, your grammar, those types of things. Then they should go through and do a copy edit. Again, this is going to depend on how much you pay. The more you pay, the better the service you should get. Also, make sure when you're looking at an editor that you see their work. Have them send you some samples. Have them send you a link to a free book that they edited so you can go over it and you can see if they're going to be worth the money that you're going to be spending, because you're going to be spending a lot of money on editing and you want to make sure that you get the best editor possible. For me, my thing is that if I go into a book and I find editing mistakes, then I know that there are more editing mistakes because I've said it before, I'll say it again, I am the worst when it comes to editing, spelling, grammar. I am the worst. I am absolutely the worst. I need an editor. So, I've looked at some editors. I've had some really good editors. I've had some great solid editors, and I've had some meh editors. And that happens. But it is what it is, right? I'm still going to go and do everything I can to have my book as polished as possible. Being with a publishing house, they should have in-house editors. Now, you don't always get a pick and say and pick and choose over the editor. They might just have one. So hopefully you get a really good editor. But at that time, you're going to be going through it as well, and you're going to be catching the things hopefully that the editor missed. And if you're working with them, you're going to end up with a pretty strong, polished book. It's not going to be perfect, but it is showing that you're taking the steps and getting the book edited. I've said it already, but the big thing is you need to ensure that you're going to have multiple rounds of editing, and if possible, have different people review the book. This means you have your main editor, you have a copy editor, and you have somebody else who will do a final proof edit, right? Those are the things that you really want to have done. It's best if you have it be somebody different. So, because each person's going to catch different things. Using the same person for all of it, you kind of get blind to your story, and because you know what you want to say, and their mind, in the editor's mind, they're going to fill in some of these mistakes, so they might not catch them. So it's just something to think about with your editing. Also, use your beta readers. Every book should have been read by some beta readers, whether it's one beta reader or 30 beta readers. Use them. Ask them. Say, hey, can you point out any spell or grammar or punctuation mistakes that you see? Any mistakes that you see in plot holes? Any character mistakes? Let them know that this is their opportunity to point out anything and everything that is potentially wrong with your story. You may not agree with everything that they say, but it's a really good way to make you go back and think about the editing of your book and the story. Because again, you wrote the story, so you know everything, but you might not have translated it all from here to the page. And that's where having these beta readers come in and read the story for you, it makes all the difference. And the best thing is, beta readers are free. Yes, I said that right. Your beta readers are free. Now, free in that they don't charge you money, but if it's a fellow author or a friend or whatever who's also writing, you may have to turn around and pay that favor back, right? You might have to beta read something for them, which is fine, because then you get to read somebody else's story and you kind of get to see how they craft a story and tell a story, and you pick up tips and tricks from them. So it's a win-win. One of the best editing tools that you can have, and this is really important, is to read the book out loud or use text to talk. In Word, for example, you can find this feature under the Review tab. So what that does is basically that allows you to hear the story as you wrote it. And you'd be surprised at the mistakes that you find as you're listening to the story. It's like, wait, what? They said what? No. That's not what I wanted it to say. Or you can also start realizing that your dialogue sounds really robotic or too perfect. Now, if that's what you're going for, that's great. But if you're having like people talk like normal, like what we're doing here, our diction and our grammar is not going to be perfect. We're going to use slangs, we're going to slur words. And so when you start to hear the story, you're going to pick up on those things and go, oh, yeah, no, that does not sound right at all. That doesn't sound like a real person's talking. So when we wrote it, it sounded great. But now that we're reading it and hearing it, that makes a huge difference. It was kind of one of the things, too, that I found when I was creating audiobooks, creating my audiobooks, that having these narrators read the story, they would send me questions and go, hey, this says this, but did you mean this? It's like, yep, I sure did. So we were able to do some tweaking with the narration, so it sounded more human. So that's just another tip and trick for you to use as you're editing the book. And you can do this, especially the beta readers and this trick, before you send it to an editor. So the more work you do ahead of ahead of sending it to an editor, the more the editor is going to be able to focus on the other things. Lastly, and this is something that I found for this last round of editing that I did for Valaria, which I thought was really an interesting way to go about it, is read the book from the last chapter to the first. So start at the end and go forward. I hadn't done that before. I hadn't really thought of that before. So to actually sit down and read the book from the very end to the very beginning was really interesting because I found some plot holes. I found some things that happen at the end that I don't really talk about at the beginning. So it gave me that opportunity to go in and make those edits, make those changes. And as well, I found some of the usual spelling, grammar, punctuation mistakes, and all those things which lurk in a story no matter how good it's edited. Well, those are my tips and tricks for today about editing. I hope that it helps. And really, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Pay for editing. Have your book edited to the best abilities possible. It is so important to have a good book or have your book edited. So really, that's about it for today. If you have questions or want to leave comments, please do so down below. I'm always happy to help as best I can. Again, that's what this is all about. As authors, we need to support and help each other. That's why I'm doing this. I want to be here for you, and I hope that my experience as a writer helps you with your writing projects. Also, I wanted to, since editing is our favorite topic as writers, I figured I would wear the black specifically for today, since, you know, we're all in mourning because we have to make changes, right? Anyways, guys, have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon. Again, reach out to me via email or here in the comments below. I'm always happy to hear from you. Okay, everybody, take care. Bye.